Welcome, one, and welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is the NFC East Mixtape, volume 146. You can listen to the show wherever you get your NFC East blog podcast across the SB Nation universe. You can also watch this show on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. If you do any of those things, you will see, hear, or smell, depending on your preferred level of technology, the voices and aromas of myself. I'm RJ Ochoa from Blog and the Boys. He is Brandon Lee Gowton from Bleeding Green Nation, BLG. Welcome to the playoffs.
I want the playoffs to be over for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, we can't speak about them yet. We have to go in divisional standing, which has been determined for the next year. So no words about those frauds quite yet. BLG, how you doing?
I feel like I'll repeat what I said. I want. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have anything to say that isn't related to that, other than I did open the show last week by saying, and my mom reminded me of this, my New Year's goal for 2024, and I never got to it at the end of the show. So sorry to listeners for the false tease there that we didn't get back to. Kind of just forgot. It's not like something you and I talked about before the show. My goal for 2024 is, obviously everyone does the I want to be healthy, eat better, go to the gym. Like that's so it's not, I'm not saying like that. It's more about like taking control of my health. I want to get, I didn't go to the doctor last year. I got to catch up on that. My yearly appointment. I want to get my sleep apnea potential situation figured out, do a sleep test. I've been feeling really tired this season, especially not helped by like the Eagles having a billion night games, but certainly in part because I believe I might have sleep apnea. So I want to get that addressed first, and then going to focus on other health things after that. But that's my resolution this year. Last year was kind of more about, and again, it's not like I'm not focusing on mental health, but
Right.
like the physical health is more at the forefront this year for me.
I completely understand where you're coming from, and certainly rooting you on in every capacity that I can, and I know everybody else is. That's a good goal. Your goal resolution, whatever you want to call it, last year you mentioned was to have more conviction in things and to kind of
be more decisive.
Right.
Yeah, is how I kind of looked at it. And by the way, sorry to interrupt you, but we do have a review here that's directly related to this from the Bleeding Green Nation Apple Podcast, 5 stars. Title NFC East Mixtape from Sloppy Joe Meat. This was on December 27th. Ron the Don here, parentheses, unless I'm still Sloppy Joe Meat, RIP, end parentheses. And I just wanted to say Happy New Year to BLG and RJ. I'm writing this review because of this week's pod. I struggle big time with anxiety and indecisiveness, but after hearing BLG talk about his New Year's resolution, I'm inspired to try and follow suit. So hopefully I can be more confident and decisive. Glad I got y'all to get me through my Wednesdays a little bit easier. How about them Cowboys?
Well, thank you, Ron the Don / Sloppy Joe Meat. Good luck to you. Certainly rooting you on as well. That was a really great goal you had, BLG. I hope it sounded like you accomplished it to a satisfactory degree in 2023. Certainly something you can continue in 2024, along with Ron the Don, in addition to your resolution. Mine, funny enough, you and I are sort of kindred spirits in that we're kind of the same person, although we're different variants of the same person in a lot of ways. And so my resolution, my wife can attest to this. I told her one day when we were walking the dogs and, pushing our son in the stroller, was to, I don't want to say take advantage of my health, but be appreciative of my health. We're young, we're in the prime of life. I want to be healthy for my son to be able to play catch and things like that. Like as we age and whatever, I am terrible about going to the doctor. So I'm glad you brought that up. Like I want to be able to just, go to the doctor, go to the dentist, go to the eye doctor, like, not put things off. And so I want to take advantage of, again, I'm not, like a world-renowned athlete or anything like that, but thank God I've got the ability to kind of, have fun and whatnot. And I want to capitalize that. I don't want to be lazy. Not that not doing so is lazy, but I want a little bit more, from the fountain of life in that respect.
Yeah, I don't think it's about being lazy. I think it's just, what you and I do. It kind of, there's so much day to day that you have to do that you kind of lose the bigger picture. I can't speak for you, but I think myself sometimes it's easy to kind of lose focus of the bigger picture with how much, news oriented stuff we have to do day to day. But there we go. Here's to better physical health in 2024.
True that. All right. After the moment of peace, love, and harmony, we have to move on. And actually, BLG and I have to move very quickly because we have a meeting. We talk about these whenever they do pop up. So we have 33 minutes on the clock. Brandon, are you ready to rock?
Let's just get into it.
All right. Well, the regular season has come and gone, and we have established our divisional speaking order for the rest, at the very least, of the offseason up until the beginning of the 2024 regular season. In what doesn't shock anyone, at least relative to last week, BLG, the Dallas Cowboys, are NFC East champions. Woo!
I think
We
I
would hang a
predicted
banner.
that.
But only loser teams ever hang division winning banners. Like nobody would do that seriously at any point ever in history. So, whatever. But they did it. It was a little touch and go early on against Washington, but the moment it turned, it really turned. And Dallas won 38-10. You mentioned, you predicted it. The streak lives. No team has repeated as NFC East champion since 2004. We will officially hit 20 years. Obviously, in the fall, the next team that has a chance to do it is the Cowboys.
And I'm sure they won't do it because it's never going to happen ever again in our lifetimes. It's the safe bet. I never thought the Cowboys were going to lose that game. I know they were down a little bit there, but I mean, there was a blocked field goal from a kicker who hasn't missed a field goal all year. There was that tipped interception. It wasn't like, the Commanders are just thoroughly outplaying the Cowboys. No. And I mean, with so much on the line, the Cowboys weren't going to lose that game against a team that has also had a lot on the line by losing that game, by getting the number 2 overall pick. So, that was never in doubt to me, and I placed a rather significant financial wager on the Cowboys winning because I was very confident they were going to win that game, and I made some money on that. So Cowboys deserved to win the NFC East because the Eagles certainly did not after choking it away. So, and it's a big deal, obviously. And it's funny because I've been thinking about how you were talking about, like, why are the odds makers so confident in the Cowboys if they're going to have all these road games?
When Philly was still leading the division, right?
Maybe it's because they didn't think they were going to have to play all those road games, and if they did, that would be a different story. So, look, I know it's not about the Eagles right now, but I said going into the year as a scope or a larger scope here that this idea that the Eagles were just going to simply get back to the Super Bowl always seemed very silly to me, just given how there hasn't even been a repeat division winner in 20 years, and certainly that keeps going.
As far as the game itself is concerned, it was a very busy Sunday, obviously, just because, like playoff opponents and things like that were set, and 2024 opponents were set for every team in the NFL, but obviously most of them are common throughout this division, at least. So my stock report didn't go out at Blogging the Boys until Monday. I had nothing but stock ups. It was really difficult to kind of find anybody that played poorly. We don't have to spend a ton of time on this game because it does, both of these games that we're going to talk about, I guess, feel rather insignificant relative to where we're at in the playoffs now. But it was nice, and I can't remember where I said this. It's a bit of a haze right now. But this is, I don't want to say like the best, but this is a different kind of, if you want to call it momentum, that the Cowboys are carrying into the playoffs, at least in the Mike McCarthy era. 2 years ago, I maintained that you over-exaggerated this point, but the Cowboys won in Week 18 at Philadelphia, and they set a bunch of franchise records, like most, individual players to score a touchdown and things like that, in a game that was literally meaningless for both Dallas and Philly. Dallas was locked into the 3 seed, and Philly was locked into the 7 seed. And that game, I believe, was on a Saturday night, if I recall correctly. So
I don't know, but it was also the first Week 18 ever. So,
right. And so, I mean, I was not a fan of them playing all their starters as much as they did in that game. I would have loved to have seen them do what Kansas City did this year, as an example, as the clinch 3 seed as well. But and then last year, kind of an inverse of what we just saw. Dallas went into Week 18 needing a Philly loss and a win themselves to win. But while they were kind of scoreboard watching, everybody knew, because the Giants were, playing for the wild card round, that there was no way on earth that Philly was going to lose that game. And so they lost, Dallas did, but it was, I never like overreacted to that, obviously. And anybody can kind of check our episodes to see that. So to enter needing a win and to get it with authority, to play so well, to win on the road, granted, against a lowly Commanders team, to run the ball really well, set up nicely, and to catch the break. I don't know, if you had seen this, but as Cowboys fans, mostly we wanted the Packers in the wild card round as opposed to the Rams. Now that could totally blow up in our face because it's the playoffs.
I don't
obviously,
think it
but
will, but it's just very funny to hear.
yeah. Well, look, everybody had like it's like the rooting for Dallas over Detroit thing, that you talked about. Like if the Cowboys lose, it was still not the wrong thing to want. So shout
Right.
out to Carson Wentz for helping make that happen by leading the Rams to victory. But finally, I guess my last point on this is the Cowboys now have a chance, if they win on Sunday, to host a divisional round playoff game. Do you know how many times they've hosted a divisional round playoff game
No.
since the last Super Bowl win? This would, because it isn't a guarantee, this would only be the third. The first was the 2007 playoff loss to Eli Manning's Giants, and the second was actually a game that Mike McCarthy won. It was against the Packers in the 2016 divisional round, the rookie Dak and Zeke year. And so this, like AT&T Stadium's first season was in 2009, and this would only, again, if the Cowboys get there, be the second divisional round playoff game it would have ever hosted. That's wild.
It's a big deal for a team that's how many straight at home? 16?
16, yeah.
So, yeah, it's a huge factor going into the playoffs, potentially avoiding the 49ers until the NFC Championship game, a game the Cowboys, if you didn't know, haven't made in a very long time. So it's a huge advantage. Getting the number 2 seed, huge deal. But yeah, this to me, it was a foregone conclusion after week 17. Like week 18 wasn't really, there was no realistic chance of anything changing, at least in my mind. So, yeah.
A little bit of just NFL breaking news happening while we're recording this. I don't know if you've seen this. The Tennessee Titans have fired Mike Vrabel.
Wow.
And yeah, so, I mean, like again, I know this is the NFC East Mixtape, but that feels relevant enough to bring up. The Commanders are the team who will face. So every NFC East team will host the AFC South team that they finished in the same place as in 2024. So the Cowboys will host the Texans because they both won the division. The Eagles will host the Jaguars. Doug Peterson's return. But the Giants will host the Colts, and the Commanders therefore will host the Titans because they both finished last. I know there was a lot of like chatter about this. I'm not trying to brag, but I did kind of call like months ago with you and Steven that maybe Mike Vrabel would be a candidate to go to New England. But I thought that would happen by way of a trade, which isn't even necessary at this point in time.
Yeah. Really interested to see what that means in terms of Bill Belichick and everything. And but yeah, I mean that's the surprise. I've always liked Vrabel. I thought he's a really good coach. Obviously the Titans, they've folded here, and it might just be time to move on from like their it's they've had this era of sorry, not the SB Nation NFL show, but the Derrick Henry era. Like they had this era of football. Right. Maybe it's just time to turn the page. It's not even about Vrabel being awful as much as they just kind of want a new era. But wow, yeah, maybe he can be the Eagles head coach next year.
I was going to make that same segue.
Or the Commanders.
Eagles. That's true. The Philadelphia Eagles lost to the New York Giants, obviously on Sunday. I would, correct me if I'm wrong. So obviously it was difficult to pay extreme attention to both these games. But it got to 24-0 while Philly was still in it. Like that was the like version of the game where Philadelphia, that Nick Sirianni waved the white flag in front of, I guess.
I think the Cowboys were down 14-10 when the game was still kind of I guess that was like the Eagles were sit down 17-0 at that point. But in any case, the point is that I mean, and I think people have to weigh this. Like, what if the Cowboys did lose that game? Like, what if they did lose that game and the Eagles couldn't beat a Giants team to get the number 2 seed? Because
they didn't, because they were down. Like, I mean, again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like and I know it's hard to call it the starters version of the team because DeAndre Swift and Darius Slay and
they definitely didn't try to win that game at all costs. Yes, because they sat some players who could have played, but still, you should have been able to produce more than 0 points, and the game should have been a game, and it shouldn't have been you're getting blown out.
This felt like, again, I don't know that this was like the most satisfying Eagles loss of the, little collapse here. What is it? 5 of 6 now that they've lost. I know that everything's been said and documented, like to go from 10-1, et cetera, to 11-6 has never been done. Some of that is also because there's, only been 17 games, for 3 years at this point in time. But,
right.
To use your favorite kind of evaluation metric, the vibes are like, I don't even like, they are the vibe. something I love that you kind of use is like, how do opponents feel about this? Like, how do
Right.
the Cowboys or Giants or Commanders feel about this? So like, I think what I'm about to say properly reflects the state of the Eagles. It's not even funny anymore what's happening to the Eagles. Like, it's funny in a way that like the Eagles floundering is always funny to me, but
Mhm.
like it's not funny because it's just pathetic at this point in time. Like it's almost relegated to like the Giants Commanders zone of like patheticness that we've seen for the last decade at this point.
I I think you would back me up on this. There's fewer things I dislike than a false positive. Don't spit in my face and tell me it's raining.
Moral
I don't
win.
want to hear that. So I thinking about I think some people, and I don't begrudge anyone. I try not to gatekeep fandom, but I think some people are like, I want the Eagles to win every single game because they think that's the best thing. I don't really agree with that. I think you have to take sometimes a longer view. You think of the bigger picture here and be more pragmatic about it. And going into that Giants game, um, especially when it became clear they didn't have a chance, like I wanted them to lose that game. To me, and I had no faith in them winning that game, even though the Giants are very bad. But I mean, I think I even said it on this show last week. I was like, "Give me the Giants. I'll take them straight up." And I was like the only person on the BGN staff to do that, by the way. So this wasn't even like a common thing. I feel
You
like
were also
everyone,
the only person of the SB Nation NFL experts group to pick the Giants to win. I don't know
right?
if you knew that. Yeah.
So because like you don't the season's over when you lose to the Cardinals at home like that. That was incredibly unserious. You don't like bounce back from that. You don't like end up with the 2 seed after losing that game. Like that doesn't happen. Like you don't deserve that at all. So yeah, Eagles are in a super bad way right now. Vibes are awful. I think a lot of it, there's a lot of issues, certainly. When you have a collapse this historic, you can't just be about one person, but the forefront of it is Nick Sirianni because this is they're a poorly coached team. I've been saying this. I was saying this during the Eagles win over the Giants. I'm like, this is a very poorly coached team right now in terms of, again, there's like the three main things to me. It's aggressiveness, it's schematic, and it's also the energy, the vibes. I don't think Sirianni is giving this team an edge at all. You said it last week in terms of you want to see Nick Sirianni back on the Eagles. I'm guessing he still will be. And to me, that's just a tough sell because you're going to bring in new coordinators just because your coach, in part because your coach was bad and he did a bad job at the top level. And so what's the thinking there? Like the coordinators are going to make up for your coach being bad, or the fact that you're going to take more power away from your coach at that point? Then why is he still the coach? Why is he still there? If you have to get better by taking more power away from him, like what's the point of that? So I'm pretty disillusioned with him. I'm not as down on the Eagles outlook as a whole because I think and shocking coming from me, I think they're in a good spot still with Howie Roseman. Like I think they're going to have talented players, but man, I think, and I said this on BGN radio, at its core, very simplified version of coaching is do you get more out of less? And that's not the case here. I think the Eagles have been getting less out of more.
Yeah, I mean, the regular season's over now, so like we can look at the like whole composite, picture of data, and like anything you look at, like lens in Philadelphia's favor, like, their offensive line is playing really well, right? Like all sorts of like different things, but like it's like how are you like breaking this badly? And I don't know if it's quit. I don't know if it's vibes. I don't know, like whatever, terminology you want to use, but like, yeah, they're taking three lefts when like Wright is standing there and staring them right in the face. And look, I don't know that it was like completely validated to say, after the Super Bowl, obviously last year, but like it did seem obvious to some degree that Nick Sirianni was just the front man of everything and that his coordinators did all the heavy lifting and that Howie Roseman built him, an incredible machine to kind of operate. And the fact that he did so very loudly has really, I think, set him up poorly. I know I keep, banging that drum, but it's because like this, everyone's coming for him because he acted, tall and mighty. And now it's like,
I mean, it'd still be coming for him, even if he was
well,
acting
they would
quietly.
be, but he certainly exacerbated the issue. I know you don't want to admit this, but like it's very clear that Mike McCarthy has made a discernible difference for the Cowboys, right? Like in taking over play calling. He's gotten the best season out of Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb that they've ever had in their careers. Like you can, to your point, you can point to Mike McCarthy and say, okay, he's making a positive net difference on the team. What is Sirianni's? Like, it seems like,
Right.
if anything, he's just handicapping them.
Well, it used to
And
be vibes. It used to be like good energy, but
so his energy was just like, screaming about the really good team. Like, that was it.
well, no, not just that. I think you saw it in terms of like the Eagles had a really good vibe and chemistry and everything. But the problem with that is, I think it's not honestly it's easy, but a lot of coaches I think can be the front runner coach in terms of when things are going well. That's not the challenge. The challenge is when adversity hits, because adversity in the NFL is inevitable. At some point, in some stretch of time, you're gonna have adversity, and it's how you respond to it. It's not that I keep saying this about what happened with the Eagles and the 49ers and the Cowboys game. The problem isn't that they had those losses. The problem is then how they responded to those
Yeah,
losses.
they panicked.
That's like when Brandon and like the Eagles kind of went in like a fork in the road in terms of, I was preaching like patience. You don't have to panic here. You can continue to believe in your process. Obviously, you need to make adjustments. You watch the film, whatever, but like you don't have to press the panic button, make a radical, desperate move at that point in the season when you're still 10-3 or whatever. And like inexplicably, they turned the keys they gave the keys to Matt Patricia to save their season. Like that is like that.
We don't have to relitigate this because we're short on time today. But you're right.
Like, bingo board was that on? But like they've gotten. That's why like I was happy the Eagles lost to the Giants and got embarrassed by them, because like you deserve that. You deserve that when you made this very incredibly unserious panic move that everyone called out at the time was a joke of a move, and anything you got after that, the defense getting even worse under him than it was with Sean Desai. Like you deserve that. You made your bed. Now you have to lie in it.
It's a tough scene for the Eagles. And we haven't mentioned Jalen Hurts. We don't have a lot of time, but like, dude, what an awful game. Like, oh my gosh, what a horrible. And again, the context of, DeAndre Swift not being there, but like, man, like the talk, like when the dust is finally settled on the chaos of the season, like the talk is going to be all about how like they paid the aberration year. Like they paid like it's hard to not on the surface draw the comparisons.
Think it's the biggest thing.
Well, it's hard to not draw the comparisons in an overall sense with just like everything involved to the Carson Wentz situation and everything floundering and cratering. And again, there being legitimate reason to pay the quarterback at the time. The number's bigger because, time passed, but like the whole situation, and I'm not the first or like 5 millionth person to say this, but like the whole situation feels identical.
I think it's identical. I mean, those are very different people, and there's different dynamics at play here. But there are some similarities. I will agree. But I mean, that's not the place where I think the energy should be to start. I mean, I'm all for criticizing the quarterback, considering he makes $250 million. But at the same time, and look, I think some of the struggles in the Giants game certainly are on him, and the Eagles' inability to deal with the blitz has been a constant. It's not just a Brian Johnson thing. It was an issue even last year when the offense was much, much better. And I think part of that is on a quarterback who holds the ball longer or almost longer than every quarterback in the league. I feel like it has to be somewhat on the quarterback when you're talking about, well, there's no hot routes in the offense. Well, where's the quarterback ever audibling to, get the ball out quick?
I think it has to be majorly on him, because I think he's not to the same degree, but I think he's like in a Nick Sirianni sort of box. Like if he can't be great because AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and the coordinators and everybody aren't doing the work for him, like what does he offer? Like if he's
that's
just
part of the problem, but at the same time,
if he's just a benefit of like everything around him, then like what difference is he making on his own?
At the same time, when you're seeing, you're dealing with the blitz over and over, and it's clear on all 22, especially that like, there aren't easy answers. The coaching staff isn't giving answers to him at some level, then that's also on them. So I definitely think it's not just the coaching staff and the quarterback is a victim by any means, but I definitely cannot say they are doing their best to help maximize him and help him out. Like you've said, McCarthy is with the Cowboys and Dak.
Yeah, I mean, but we had seen Dak succeed when that wasn't happening. I mean, albeit not to this degree, but I mean, again, I think to in a different universe, the same conversations about Sirianni are fair to be had about Jalen, except Jalen didn't dig his grave the same way Sirianni did. It's really the main difference, and is a much more likable person. Like he's a 100% likable person, whereas Sirianni might be the exact polar opposite of that. We have a lot to get to, and Brandon and I, like I said, we are running short on time this particular week. But do we have to talk about anything about the Giants? I mean, they are making some coaching changes, I guess. Wink Martindale appears to be out.
Gone, which is kind of like not a popular move, it seems to be, at least not entirely with Giants fans, especially after that season finale. I thought that was a really good hire for them when they hired him. And it seems kind of like there was obviously talk about this during the season, that Jay Glazer report or whatever it was, that like there was kind of discord
Tension,
between
yeah.
him and Brian Dable. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic there. And it was framed as Martindale resigning, which, you know, I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure they didn't want to keep him and he just wanted to quit. I'm sure it's a mutual kind of thing there. But still, that's a little different than we just like fired him outright. So, yeah, I mean, the Giants will have a new defensive coordinator in 2024, and that's it. Seems like they're keeping Kafka as their offensive coordinator. Obviously, Dable staying around. Giants, by the way, as we said, like I guess the season ended in a nice way for them, but this idea that you had kind of a relatively miserable season and you didn't even get a top 5 pick out of it is true, because they're picking 6. The Chargers were not able to beat the Chiefs backups, which is annoying to Giants fans because the Giants would have had that 5th overall pick, but instead are just outside the top 5.
That's what Sunday was nirvana for me. Like the Cowboys kicked ass and the Eagles were embarrassed and the Giants damaged their draft pick. So it checked every single box. By the way, on the subject of the coordinators, did you see the NFLPA survey that came out last week where like 1,700 players offered their thoughts on coordinators? Do you know who was a top 5 offensive coordinator in that survey?
No.
Brian Schottenheimer. So maybe put some respect on his name. That's all I'm saying. You know, again, these voted by 1,700 people. These are the facts. I guess finally, before playoff discussion, this might be the actual biggest news. I mean, well, but I was told he does nothing. He's going to, hinder and handicap the offense, and it's going to be a disaster. But got a lot of positive reviews. Sample. Anyway, the Washington Commanders fired Ron Rivera. That was not a surprise. That felt inevitable. Nobody was fired actually on Sunday. Even Arthur Smith was fired past midnight on Sunday night, at least Eastern. But Ron Rivera fired on Monday, the day after his birthday. Again, not a surprise. I don't think it's an exaggeration to call the football part of his, reign in Washington a complete and total failure. I mean, again, I recognize that they won a division title, but they were a below 500 team. They benefited from Dak Prescott having a season-ending injury and Doug Peterson's, Eagles collapsing and the Giants continuing to be the Giants. I mean, like they were awful. They were terrible. Everything that they did in a football sense was like, what good thing happened in like Washington's football run under his like tenure? Terry McLaurin, that it?
Yeah.
I mean, like the biggest resource they had, they fumbled in Chase Young, right? Like it's not Justin Herbert or Tua Tagovailoa or anything. I mean, it was a complete and total abject failure. He's a wonderful human being, and I do think probably was the right person to help them, transition through the name change and the culture change and the ownership change. This did feel like the final kind of piece towards moving towards a future for Washington, obviously. And they have a long list of people who they're obviously interviewing for all their open positions at this point in time. A list that includes Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn, as well as Dallas Cowboys vice president of player personnel Will McClay.
Also, Eagles assistant GM Alec Calaby. So, and then I don't know if you just mentioned the Bob Myers thing is kind of interesting too, in terms of how they're going at this from a different kind of perspective. It's exciting. It's exciting if you're a Commanders fan, because it's like there's all this possibility now in front of you.
There's nothing but possibility. Like you no longer have nothing's holding you back to the past. There's no Snyder or Rivera. Like it's all finally officially over.
And I think it's a really attractive job from a standpoint of not only do you have the number 2 overall pick, but you also have the allure of you can be the person to fix the Commanders. And you're also going to get a relatively good grace period, because this fan base is going to be rooting for you so hard and going to give you patience, I believe, with how just, hopeless they've been for so long. So I think the Commanders are in a good spot. I did think, if we go back to our schedule predictions, I feel like I did have them at 4 wins. I think you and I maybe both had them at 4 wins. I'm pretty that sounds pretty right to me. So congrats to us for nailing that. And I think they're certainly in a good spot in terms of the ability to ascend. Who do you want to see them not hire? Who would concern you the most? I guess GM, it's a little bit hard. I mean, obviously, you're probably going to say Will McClay for their GM.
But that would just be because he would leave the Cowboys, and he won't. I'm very confident he won't leave. As far as head coach is concerned,
let's focus on that because the GM thing's a little bit more like nebulous.
I would not be at all concerned if it was Bill Belichick. That wouldn't bother me. Like Mike Vrabel would bother me more than Bill Belichick today. And
the reporting seems to be they're not going to hire a retread. That's the buzz.
I mean, well, you asked me. I mean, so the one that I think concerns me the most, although it would be kind of funny and it would potentially fail, which would obviously be really funny, is Jim Harbaugh. Obviously, Michigan won the national championship. Like Jim Harbaugh comes with I don't know if baggage is the right word, but with a lot of attention. And I do think that's what's probably advantageous about him right now. If you're Washington, like he's a star. Like you need a face for like the rebuild, and Jim Harbaugh certainly provides that. And you get like whatever Drake May, if that's going to be your quarterback at number 2 overall, like you have a brand new future. And if you're Jim Harbaugh, to your point, like you have a grace period, you have a chance to resuscitate not just an NFL team, but like a blue blood of the NFL, like the Washington franchise. Once upon a time, we have said as many times, like a Tiffany brand franchise in the NFL. And plus, everybody obviously has made the connection to being in Maryland with his brother, et cetera, et cetera. So Jim Harbaugh, and because like he only has success, like you can say what you want about him, but like he has had immense success everywhere he's ever gone. So like that's the one that probably terrifies me the most, and I'm nervous because it does seem kind of probable at this point in time.
I don't know. Again, that report I saw about like not necessarily going for a retread, and I don't know if they really want to make him the face of that as much as they want to lean into maybe more of the quarterback they take. But I agree with you in terms of I think Harbaugh is really good, and I don't know so much if I believe in his long-term viability as much as like I don't worry about that as like him being like this foundational coach who's going to be there forever as much as I think he does have the ability to turn that team around very quickly and have short-term success. So that would be kind of my concern if they did hire him. But yeah, I guess there isn't a guy right now that like super sticks out as who I want them to not like, but Ben Johnson, I guess I kind of would prefer them to not get him.
Top 3 on the fear scale. I think we agree. Rank them how you want. Jim Harbaugh, now Mike Vrabel, and Ben Johnson. Any one of those, I think we're a little panicked. You know what I mean? We're a little nervous.
Yeah, and then I'm not like shaking my boots, but I'm a little like I think what might be the best move for them. I'm intrigued by a Mike McDonald from the Ravens. I think that could be a move. I think he's had some interesting ideas on defense, and I don't know enough about him, to totally say he's going to be the next great thing. But there's a level of intrigue there that I do think is worth getting excited about if you're a Commanders fan.
Let's offer some brief initial thoughts on the 2 playoff games. Obviously, now that the Giants and Commanders part of the discussion is over, so we'll go. That's right. We'll go in chronological order. I hadn't noticed this until midway through the day on Monday. Did you realize that it's all AFC games and then all NFC games? Did you realize that? So that's kind of funny. So the Cowboys are actually
not funny to me. I wish the Eagles were playing on that first time slot instead of Monday night.
The Cowboys actually have the first NFC game. It's Sunday at 3:30 Central at AT&T Stadium. That's the window for the glare at AT&T Stadium. If you're unfamiliar, like watch out. That's the kind of peak moment for the glare to really hit and shine. They are, as of Tuesday about lunchtime, 7.5 point favorites against the Packers. That opened at 7, so it's moved slightly. Your thoughts?
I think Jordan Love can have a good game, but I just go back to the record of quarterbacks who are making their first playoff start. It's just not good at all especially compared to quarterbacks who have been there before and teams who have been there before. Packers are also like the youngest team or one of the youngest teams in the NFL. So I think it's not just about the quarterback, but the whole roster. I think it'll be a game early on. I think they'll come forth with a good effort, but I think the Cowboys will end up pulling away. So I'm pretty confident Dallas win. I'm not as confident in the spread, but I'll lean with the Cowboys here. I genuinely believe. I mean, they've also been winning so much at home. I know you said you're terrified or whatever, but I think that's more just about guarding against yourself or guarding against the letdown that you're just used to. But I honestly don't think, and I'm not doing this as a bit, I just don't think the Cowboys are going to lose this game.
I mean, I pretty much agree with everything you're saying. I think the age thing, like experience thing is a sports cliche, but cliches are cliches because there's truth to them to some degree.
There's there's ample track record for this in the NFL.
It's a cliche to say like as a data point, but there's also data to support it. And something I've said and a lot of Cowboys fans have said is what has made them, part of what's made them unsuccessful, because part of it's been their own fault, but part of what's made them unsuccessful in playoff runs prior to Mike McCarthy has been how not consistent.
Aaron Rodgers.
Well, that too. But they just didn't have experience together. I think you would agree that part of what has been so, an important factor in, Philly's runs has been the nucleus of players that have been there and kind of experienced those things together. And so you mentioned it's not just, the Dak Prescott experience, but it's even Micah Parsons now. This is his third playoffs, the DeMarcus Lawrence, the Zach Martins, the Tyron Smiths, right? Like now CeeDee Lamb's obviously been a part of all that too. Like all of them know what this moment is like and aren't as phased by the initial thing. You mentioned obviously first quarterback starts. Dak Prescott lost his to Mike McCarthy. So, that's important. I'm with you. I'm going to take the Cowboys to win. I am going to guard against myself and say I don't know that they cover. I mean, 7.5 is a lot to give in a playoff game. It's a big number. So I'll take them to win maybe by 6, something like that. But I could just as easily see them like boat racing them, like that exists in the world of possibilities. Not that I'm super confident in that. So yeah, this is a big one, and go do it. Like this is your chance to host a divisional round playoff game, and if fate works out for you, maybe host a team that you really like your odds against, and you can get to the title game and see what happens. But okay, so I think
it would be a really bad loss if they lost this game.
I mean, contingent upon exactly how it potentially happened, but I think most
in this spot where you're dominant at home and you're going up against this young team, that would be a really bad loss. And you're 7.5 point favorites. That's a really bad loss.
Again, contingent upon what happened, but you're right. In most instances, I would agree hypothetically. I think it's important to pick the Rams Lions game just so we have an idea of what we're forecasting the division around.
I'm going to say the Lions win. I just don't think it's their story to get this far and not win a playoff game. I think they're due for a playoff win finally for the first time since January 1992.
3.5 point favorites at home.
I'll take the Rams to cover, but the Lions win. I
mean, that's just home field advantage. And it was 3 actually before it moved slightly. I'm going to take the Rams. Like I've been saying, I'm super afraid of the Rams, and the Lions have been a little bit vulnerable as of late. I know they put things away, near the end against Minnesota. And I think it would be their story to get there, host a playoff game, and then, lose to Matthew Stafford. Like that would be, demoralizing, obviously, but like it does. It is a
Jared
story.
Goff revenge game, like you said on the SB Nation NFL show.
I was so happy that JP agreed with me. Like what revenge is this for the Rams against Jared Goff? That was like the point. It was like I feel like they're good. Like they feel like they won.
Well, yeah, them against him, sure, but him against them, that's a big thing. Like they dumped him.
I mean, I know, but like. I mean, okay. I mean, then let's see Jared Goff. I would be entertained
in a way where they gave up an extra first round pick to get. Not only did they just like say, "Hey, you're not good enough," you're like, "You're a liability." That's what they said with their.
They
were
right. They were literally right. I mean, like
he was better than they gave him credit for, though.
That's fine, but like what they did,
they weren't
completely
right. They were right in terms of like it worked out for them to upgrade for sure, but they weren't like that trade is a bad trade for them in terms like they shouldn't have had to give up an extra first round pick just to move off of him. That was wrong.
Well, if they
that
had
value was wrong,
it
was a wrong valuation. It was
Goff.
It worked, but it was a wrong.
Credit,
it was a wrong valuation.
He has completely and totally improved and done nothing but the absolute right things since getting dumped, and has a chance. You're right for like ultimate revenge, given that it's the playoffs. Even though the Rams won the Super Bowl, but so
I think teammates could buy into that. I think they,
we differ here. On this game, we have to hurry because we have to get songs too. I imagine you're picking the Bucks. I'm going to pick the Eagles, but I think you're picking the Bucks.
The Bucks are really bad is what I worry about. Like I watched that 9-0 win over the Panthers. The Panthers are terrible. And the Bucks is like, I think I don't think he is hurt. So I don't know. It's not about having any faith in the Eagles. It's not about that at all. It's just that I wonder if the Bucks are, they scored 9 points against the Panthers. They scored 13 points the week before against the Saints. Again, Baker's banged up. There's an extra day here since they play Monday. Maybe that helps Baker out.
That's such a bad draw. I hated that last year. And there's a world we really have to hurry, but just to squeeze this in, where if the Cowboys win and the Rams win, then the Cowboys get the winner of this game with a day's rest advantage and Dallas being at home. Like that's what's so stupid about this. And I argued that same thing last year when it was Dallas in that spot.
I agree. Yeah. I'm emotional hedge betting the Eagles to win because I don't want it to happen because I don't think because it's just pointless because okay they win this game and then they're just gonna get smoked in the next round. It's just a waste of time. I'm done watching this team. It's not fun. I just want it to be over. So I'm gonna take the Eagles and hope they lose.
I'm gonna take the Eagles. It's not really about benefit of the doubt. I worded it that way
spread, to be clear, but Eagles win.
Yeah. But like the Bucks are just that bad at this point. And I mean the collapse is already historic, but I have a hard time seeing it going like this notch further for the Eagles. But I'll take the Eagles.
And they beat the Bucks
So,
earlier this year. Not that it's the same thing, but it's not like out of the realm of possibility. They could do this.
so I have Dallas hosting Philly in
Mm-hmm.
the divisional round, and
Waste of
San
time.
Francisco hosting the Rams. You have Dallas hosting Detroit, and Philly going to San Francisco. Okay,
Great.
Let's do songs and get out of here because we have to run to our meeting. Rachel has gone with "Hate That I Love You" by Rihanna and Neo. I'm gonna go with "Text Me in the Morning" by Neon Trees, an underrated group.
Ooh, I remember they were really big in like 2010, like that time around there.
This album came out like 2013, I think. So it's solid.
So a little bit, but
they got
that
some
big
solid
song
bops. Yeah,
on the radio. I can't remember their songs.
they
off
had
the top
Animal.
Of my head. Animal.
That was like their big one. But "Text Me in the Morning" is my song. Give us a song because we're gonna get in trouble.
I'm going with Devotchka. That's DEVOTCHKA. How It Ends. There's a line in that song that goes, "You already know how this will end," and I think that theme is fitting and somber for this Eagles season.
Okay, since we have to go, and since you're talking about the end, and since you are Seth Rogen, say the words, "This is the end."
This is the end.